Can you hear the cat?
Babylon. Okay, wait. Let's try
No.
this.
No? He's purring pretty heavy right now.
You know we're not in the room with you, right?
Clear the air lanes for the big broadcast.
We're not professional podcasters.
Say what?
We barely know what we're doing,
It's funny because it's true.
but we have fun anyway.
I'm here to podcast.
Does everybody know what time it is?
We're going streaky! Yeah!
No, we're not. It's time for movies, pop culture, and more with the all-new Culture Cast, starting now.
I am the Gorehound,
I'm Nick.
And I'm Jen.
and this is the all-new Culture Cast, back for the latest edition. Continuing on with our Kevin Smith View Askewniverse month. This
Which
week,
Jen is enjoying, no doubt.
yeah,
Oh my god,
Yeah,
every
Jen-
day.
Jen, I feel like has been stalking me every day as I walk out of the house. Because I just feel like she's out there just waiting to kill me because she hates me so much that I'm making her watch these movies because they are not up Jen's alley of preferred movies.
That's very specific. I mean, I know where you live. I don't know where you work. It makes it harder to tell you. You know what I mean?
But Nick, you're enjoying these, right?
Sure. No. I'm. A lot of this is, for lack of a better word, nostalgia for me because when I was into Kevin Smith, it was late high school, early college. So some of the memories attached to it. But it's been like a long, long time since I've actually sat down and watched some of these movies. So it's interesting to revisit them as an adult.
Yeah.
But today we are going to be talking about the fifth, and at the time was meant to be the capstone of the View Askewniverse, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
And I think out of all of the movies that Kevin Smith has made, this is the one that I have watched the most, and I have watched this a ridiculous amount of times.
That's sad, and we'll get to that. But
Not to build it up or anything.
but before we get that far, let's go into our typical topics, or our standard weekly affair. First up, what have you been watching?
What have you been watching?
Okay, I'll start. So as you guys know, it's Oscar Death Race season.
Yeah, how's that
So I've
going?
been watching movies nonstop.
Death Race.
Yeah, and I just finished. It was amazing. OJ, Made in America, which got nominated for Best Documentary. It is an 8-hour miniseries that originally aired on ESPN as part of their 30 for 30 sports documentaries.
And you watch them all in a row, right?
No, actually, so what happened was when it first came out on DVD, I borrowed it from the library and I watched the first disc. And then the second disc was broken, so I took it back to the library and I said, "Hey, are you guys going to replace this?" And they were like, "Oh, I don't know, maybe not." And then, I moved and then I went to a new place and they didn't have the DVD at the library. And I was like, "Oh my God." But then I found out it was on Hulu. So anyway, I finished the second half of it or so this week after having watched the first half
And
a
you
few
loved
months
it?
ago. But yeah, no, it's so good. It is so good. I was 10 when everything happened, when there was the chase and then the trial. And so there was a lot of stuff that, my parents weren't watching it, but the whole nation was watching it. And we'd watched a lot of 2020. And, this was all the news magazines would talk about was this case. So as an adult, kind of getting to watch this documentary and really contextualize a lot of the stuff that I didn't really understand as a kid has been fascinating.
Yeah, from a different perspective. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and to hear from all sorts of different people, as opposed to kind of filtering it through the news media and also my parents, and to kind of draw my own conclusions as an adult. Definitely would recommend. And as soon as the Oscar Death Race is over, I just found out that on Netflix, they have the fictionalized one starring David Schwimmer and John Travolta and Cuba Gooding Jr. And
What's that one called?
I do not remember the name of it. But
What's your
I will
opinion
be
on
watching
David
it.
Schwimmer? Do you like David Schwimmer?
I mean, I liked Friends, but I would say
That was a bold choice to cast David Schwimmer as OJ.
I like.
Wait,
I
was he
liked
really
Friends.
OJ?
I don't know that I have-
No, I'm being
Okay.
stupid.
No,
Oh,
Cuba
stupid
Gooding
Nick.
Jr. is OJ. Anyway, but yeah, so I'm very excited. That's going to be the first post Oscar. Just dive right in with something fun and light.
I believe that show is called The People vs. O.J. Simpson.
Yes, that,
Gotcha.
and I'll be watching.
Cool. I have not. About the only thing I've seen was the season finale of Vikings, which was actually pretty legit. I liked how it ended, and it took a different turn that I was expecting at the end, but I think all in all, I think they're holding my attention. Obviously, Ragnar is not in this anymore, and that was the primary draw for, I think, most of the viewers. But they've put the story on other characters, and I think that they're holding their own in this. They kind of dropped the ball in the middle of the series, but I'm happy. I'll be looking forward to the next season. So that ended, and now I really don't know what I'm going to watch after this, because that was like the only thing I watch on a weekly basis. But I did finish my Terry Nuts book, and I am moving on to reading comics for like the next month. So I'm really looking forward to that. I just read a Thunderbolts comic. Nick, are you familiar with that group?
Those are the ones who are they pretend to be bad guys. They pretend to be good guys, but they're really bad guys.
Oh, I don't think it's pretend. It's like Red Hulk, Venom, Punisher.
Okay. It's an updated version of the team.
Okay.
Do a Google search or a Wikipedia. Thunderbolts has an interesting backstory, but anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check that out. But yeah, so that's about it for me. Nick, cover yourself.
I recently watched the movie Trainwreck with what's her name, Amy Schumer. It's been on our DVR for like, I don't know, since we've had the DVR, and we realized our DVR was nearly at 100%, so we probably should start watching things.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. When this movie was first coming out in previews, I was rolling my eyes at it, and I had like dirt level expectations, and it might be unfair, but some of that dirt level expectation was when this movie was coming out, Amy Schumer's face was everywhere. Like, just, you couldn't escape it. And I had just gotten, like, so, that's what I'm looking for. Like, I was exhausted. And
Yeah, she was everywhere when that was out.
yeah, and which is unfair for the movie, but it just really turned me off to it. But I had
John Cena was awesome in it. I have to say that.
Yeah, he was unexpectedly good, but
Yeah.
I have to say I enjoyed it much more than I was expecting to, and I think it was a little bit long, as like most Judd Apatow films kind of get, but overall, thumbs up. It was much better than I was expecting. I would recommend it for people who want to watch a romantic comedy, but still have like edge to it. I mean, it follows all the tropes and everything, but one thing that was interesting about the movie that I noticed is that she wasn't as much of a train wreck as the movie's title led me to believe. Because, like, even though she liked to drink and she liked to hook up with a bunch of random guys, I was expecting her to be more like, my life is completely out of control, which it really wasn't in the movie. But
Yeah, if you're going to call your movie Trainwreck, you should have a train wreck in there. Just like that Jake Gyllenhaal movie, where it's just train wreck on repeat.
which one
I always
is
forget that movie actually happened and wasn't just a fever dream of mine.
What's that? Trainwreck or Jake Gyllenhaal's movie?
No, I love Trainwreck. The Jake Gyllenhaal movie where he's like on a metro train too, like out of Chicago, and
Source Code?
Source Code. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which the Gorhan and I watched together many moons back.
Oh, we did. I remember that. I just watched this one while I was working out the other day. On mute, without closed captioning. It was driving me crazy. But I was like, I'm here for a workout. I'm not here to watch TV. So let's just make this work. And it was not working for me. But from what I recall, it worked for me when we first watched it either.
I liked the movie because I'm a sucker for a time travel movie up until the very, very end of that, where he takes over that other guy's life completely because he's living in an alternate timeline now, and it just becomes unbelievably creepy and weird.
Mm-hmm.
So it forced me to come up with a term where a movie is very, very good except for 5 minutes at the end, which completely destroy the entire film. I call that, when that happens, a film source codes for me. So
You're good.
But, yeah, so let's move on. I think everyone's favorite part of the show, Man Crush.
Man Crush.
Adam Conover.
Okay, what's his story?
Have either of you heard of this guy?
No, he sounds made up.
Oh no, he is definitely not made up. Kind of a weird character that I don't think many people would have expected, because I don't think I've mentioned that I watch this show quite a bit. But it's Adam Ruins Everything on True TV. Have you heard anything about it?
Yes.
Okay. Basically, he ruins everything in each episode. Like, for the last one that I watched was Adam Ruins Football. And it's basically a 30 episode. I'm sorry that I'm saying basically a lot. I'm trying not to. Adam ruins everything about football, talking about concussions and the money and the profits and the lies and all of this. And it's all based on articles that are, rolling down the side of the screen as he cites them. And he's basically like debunking bad things about all these topics. And it's very interesting because I'm learning something while I'm entertained. And this guy he draws me in. He's very, very fun to watch. His style is awesome. He's very quirky. I enjoy it. But what really pushed it over the edge this week was that I was basically just looking and seeing what else he has done, because I've never really seen him on any other media besides this TV show. And he has a podcast out. I was so excited. Albeit it's only 18 episodes right now, but I listened to them, and it's him basically doing a podcast form of the show. I consider it more of a supplement to the show, where he basically, there's people that he is interviewing on the TV show. He has like extended conversations with them. So it's definitely not one of the best podcasts that I listen to. It's a great extension of a show that I already watch. So I would really suggest that either of you just watch an episode or two.
I feel like it's one of those shows I've heard so much about and yet, like, never see. Like, it's not represented in the media, or at least, it's not something that ever come across.
We ready to jump on to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back?
Yes, we are. I am. Jen?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jen.
Just picture me rolling my neck, cracking my knuckles, ready to get in here.
I would just drop me down.
Okay. You know what? Let's start out. Okay. Have you ever just watched a movie and just immediately known with absolute certainty what the director masturbates about?
Dick and fart jokes?
I mean, no.
Jokes?
Not just dick and fart jokes, although absolutely dick and fart jokes, but also women fighting in slow-mo while wearing pleather suits. Definitely something you want to wear if you're breaking into a diamond building.
Okay, but that's any action movie. I mean, look at Underworld. She never takes off the leather suit.
I think you and I both know I have never watched Underworld.
Continue.
Okay. So you've got that. You've got blowing Jason Mewes. Definitely masturbates about that. Let's see, what else? Just like shootouts and getting to beat up James Vanderbeek. I mean,
Yeah, he was good. The
you
cameo
just
was
watch
good.
this and you're like, oh my god, I know exactly what this man's sexual fantasies are, and I don't want to.
All right. I think that we missed a part. This is a sequel to Clerks. Jane and Silent Bob are obviously characters from Clerks that only had like a total of maybe 10 minutes in Clerks. And this is basically an entire movie about them.
Well, I think you're selling it a bit short there when you're saying it's a sequel to Clerks.
Mallrats was in the middle.
Well, there was a lot of films in the middle. There was first Clerks, then it went to Mallrats, which chronologically takes place before Clerks. Then there's Chasing Amy, which is arguably the strongest of the bunch. It's also the most 90s of all movies, but that's another topic for another day. Then there was Dogma, and then it finally capped off with this film. This film is kind of like, if you want to make a comparison, think of the Marvel franchise. And when that got started, you had Iron Man, the Hulk, Captain America, Thor, and they all came together for Avengers. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is kind of like the Avengers of the View Askew film, the Kevin Smith films. Because all the other characters crossed and met one another. Well, not necessarily met one another, but Jay and Silent Bob was like going down the list, going through, connecting to all these characters, referring back to past events. So it's not a sequel in the strictest sense of the term, at least I feel. But it's more of another movie that takes place in this cinematic universe, but features the two side characters in lead roles.
Okay.
So
I'll follow that.
That's my nerdy nitpicking for that. But if you don't mind, I'm going to give a brief summary of the film for those who have not seen it.
Yeah, sorry for jumping forward. I've been in anticipation of Jen just tearing this movie apart, so I wanted to get a little bit out.
The film centers on the characters of Jay and Silent Bob, who discover that there is a movie being made based on a comic book, which they were used as the likenesses for. They learned that this movie is being made without their permission for their likenesses, so they decided to embark on a cross-country trip to get the proper royalties about this from this movie. And along the way, they meet. They have several misadventures with a monkey and a group of eco-terrorists, female eco-terrorists, and a host of other issues as well. The interesting thing when this film was being made, and I don't know, Jen, if you might have picked up on this at all, but Kevin Smith's films up to this point were all very independent. Like they're indie, they had the indie sensibility. This was meant to be his breakout mainstream movie. And that's very evidenced by the fact that he throws in a ton of stoner comedy cliches or slacker comedy cliches, in addition to overwhelming cameos by several popular stars of the day.
I'm talking constantly about how it's a Miramax production.
Well, yeah, there's some meta references in that as well. It's also meant to be a capstone to Kevin Smith's films up to that point, because he wanted to retire that form of filmmaking and move on to other things, which when Ben Affleck said at the beginning, aren't you tired of all the dick and fart jokes again and again? And Silent Bob's character is nodding like, yeah, which is obviously a shout out to Kevin Smith's actual thoughts at the time. But so just a little side trivia fact there with that how it's supposed to be his mainstream sort of breakout, which I don't think works at all.
Don't think it works as a breakout, or don't think works as a movie? Because
it works,
I can meet you there.
it works as a movie as it follows all the conventions that a movie needs to follow. Mm-hmm. As a breakout, I don't think it does because it's very cliche. It's very cartoony. It's very I don't know what I would compare it to, but it if you want to get mainstream success or mainstream recognition, this was not the film to do that. I felt like, I know, Jen, you didn't like Clerks, and for valid reasons, but I felt all of his films up to this one had sort of genuineness to it that, okay, I could see they're trying to make a legitimately good movie, but this one just strikes me as almost selling out, which I don't know if he's trying to satirize the idea of selling out, or if he just is selling out in the process. I don't know. It's a weird. I don't know how to better explain that or my thoughts on that, but it's just a weird observation that I sort of came up with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But yeah, let's talk about the merits or non-merits of the movie. Gorhan, what about this movie do you like?
It's difficult to pinpoint. I know that from a strictly feelings perspective, it makes me happy while I watch it. The jokes continue to be funny each time I watch them. The relationship between Jay and Silent Bob is just hilarious to me. The script, it's so stupid. And they're so, you could say, young and uneducated, but it's hilarious. I feel that it does evolve the characters much more than what we saw in Clerks, because in Clerks we only saw them for 10 minutes. This time we really get to see them fleshed out. Also, I thought that, Jen, you might be more open to them because they express more political opinions and they express how a woman's body is her own fucking choice, as Jay says. I thought, like, oh, Jen must like him. Did it work?
I mean, that's adorable. I mean, look, sure, that is a good thing. I think anytime you're expressing.
So 1 point for Jay and Silent Bob.
Sure,
okay,
that's good. Is there other stuff that I didn't like? I mean, again, you've got the same, like, weird homophobia. Like, I don't get it. Like, what happened to this man as a child? Where he thinks the funniest joke in the world is just like, what if dudes were banging?
Because I think his conversations go in such story mode that they go in one direction and they keep on going and they keep on going. And at some point you just turn around and you look, how did I get here? But it's just all of these incremental steps that get you to form to the story to where you're at.
It's been a while since I thought about this, but what was the homophobia in Jay and Silent Bob?
I mean, just like, so there's the, what's his name from the Drew Carey show is the security guard. And, they're like, oh, well, we're not gonna have sex with you. And he's like, but I'll he'll give me a blowjob in front of you. And then, and then you can jerk off. And, he's like, yeah, I definitely want that. And
they're friends. That's why they don't want to have sex with each other.
Right. No. But it's like this weird idea that, like, okay, no, it would be gay if I had sex with you, but, like, I can definitely watch one of you have, give a blowjob to the other one and then jerk off. And that's like, I mean, it's very much, okay, so you guys were 15-year-old boys once, right?
Never.
Okay, so you know how 15-year-old boys, like, they haven't gotten laid yet, but they're, like, really obsessed with the idea that, like, one day they might get laid. And, so as a result, all they can do is talk about it, and they're just like, oh, man, that girl, I think she puts out. No, I don't know. She doesn't put out, but, like, that one over there puts out, that's what it reminds me of, right? It's like a guy who never quite, and it's so weird because his wife is super hot, but like he's so obsessed with the idea that like someone somewhere might be sucking a dick.
I don't know if I would necessarily call that homophobia. I would say it's a cheap joke and that it's absurdist type humor. I don't know, Jen, do you ever watch the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
I tried like one episode and I was like, not my thing. But I understand a lot of people love it.
Jen, I think you just might be too classy for this movie.
God, thank God. I would hate to think I was not classy enough for this movie, you know?
In It's Always Sunny, there's a reoccurring gag that one of the characters is very much a closet case homosexual, and the way he goes about expressing himself in the show is it's so painfully obvious that he's gay, but he's the one that's oblivious to it or in denial of it, and that's kind of like where the humor sort of comes from. I feel like in this case as well, it's very, very similarly done. I don't know if I would jump to the homophobia necessarily, because again, I kind of like when we're talking about like the sex potentially in Clerks. Where is a line drawn where something is just absurdist humor or cheap humor or whatever however you want to classify it? Like, where's the line drawn where it turns into something that's a phobia or an ism? I think that's a very gray area, but I don't know.
I mean, I think you can have. I mean, if there has to be a certain number of like dude on dude blowjob jokes to like say that something is homophobic, I think we have hit the number. Like, I didn't keep track. I should have kept track. That's on me, guys. I'm sorry. I will not rewatch it to count. But
are you ever going to watch this movie again?
Absolutely not. Not if Alex Trebek popped up and was like, watch this movie and you can have $1 million. And I was like, I don't know how you got in my house, but I like the idea. What movie do I have to watch? And he said, watch this one again. I'd say, you know what, Alex Trebek? I'm sorry. You're going to have to go.
I will say that Kevin Smith does have a very odd obsession with that in these early films here.
Yeah, but that's just who he is. He likes talking about that.
Well, what's really interesting, I think, that you bring up the possible homophobia is Kevin Smith's earlier film Chasing Amy was completely about homosexuality and acceptance and not dealing with it, but I can't think of the term I'm trying to think of, but
yeah, because the main character is Amy is a lesbian, or I think she's bisexual or something like that.
Well, that's the question. She kind of goes back and forth throughout the movie. Right. And her name, oddly enough, wasn't Amy. Chasing Amy has a terrible title, but because
who's Amy?
It refers to a story that Silent Bob tells at the end of the movie about.
Oh yeah,
but
you're chasing Amy.
Yeah. It refers to an ex-girlfriend of his, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. So it's definitely on his mind. I wonder if Kevin Smith dabbled in homosexuality when he was younger. It wouldn't surprise me, honestly. I don't mean that in some like slam, but I could see him, given like how he talks about it in his films, that it sort of working through, you know, his own experiences or using his own experiences to influence his work. But
I mean, okay, so here I think is a good way of like deciding whether or not you think something is homophobic. If you were like a 15-year-old closeted kid and you were watching this, would you feel like really good about your identity after watching it? You know what I mean? I think you'd feel embarrassed and you'd feel like your sexuality was a joke.
I'd have to rewatch the scene. honestly, and look at it from that point of view. I really would. As without looking at that, I tentatively don't know if I could fall in that it's completely homophobic. But I'd have to see it again through a different lens to see if it would fall into that.
Mm.
And I don't think that I've ever really taken the movie that seriously to think about it, because I've considered this movie just to be a straight up comedy, just like because it's pretty much just like any other Will Ferrell movie. Here, I find it to be a classier, more thought out, like Anchorman.
Which is ironic because Will Ferrell stars in this movie.
Right. One of the bigger names in this.
It's interesting you bring that up, that it's a comedy. This is a film that is going to appeal to people who are in high school and in college.
And the Gorehound.
And the Gorehound.
Yeah.
Someone coming... This is not a film for adults in that...
This is a very specific subset or specific demographic of people who will watch it and enjoy it.
It's very much targeted to that. Because I remember when I was in... This movie came out my freshman year of college. And I remember watching it at Eastern. And because we had Eastern Illinois had a events on campus where they would show movies, kind of like a second run type theater. Like every weekend they'd have a new movie.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and this was one of the
so awesome.
This was one of the films that they showed. I went with my roommate at the time, and we laughed our asses off. And then when the film came on our campus movie station, we recorded it off of VHS and we watched it quite frequently. And we were just like, we were laughing so hard, like, because it's stupid, it's dumb, it's cheap comedy that appeals to like idiot teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
But that's its demographic. As an adult, like going back and watching this movie, it's so lowbrow. You might get some chuckles out of how stupid some things are, but it's going to be something that's difficult to sit through. It's going to be like, hey, let's watch this movie, and you're going to be trying to show it to someone, and 5 minutes in, you're going to be embarrassed by showing it to someone because you haven't watched it in 15 years. And like, this wasn't as funny as I remembered it being.
Fair enough.
I'd be curious to see what your thoughts of it would have been had you seen it when it first came out when you were a teen.
See, now I don't know. I remember my sophomore year of college. I was dating a guy who was really into, God, what was that movie called? And I hated it. That guy.
Yeah.
2004.
Are you whispering to yourself?
What?
Are you whispering to yourself?
Yeah,
Or
no, I'm
whispering
trying to
to
remember
somebody?
what the name of that movie was.
Oh,
It's the
okay.
one with, Pedro for president.
Oh, Napoleon Dynamite?
Napoleon Dynamite.
Napoleon Dynamite. Oh my God. So the guy I was seeing was like really into this movie, and he was like, no, you have to watch it. You have to watch it. So I go to his dorm room because, college.
Yeah.
And, we're watching this movie, and he's just like laughing and wearing chapstick, and I'm just like slitting my wrists in the corner. Like, I cannot believe I'm watching this. This is the worst.
Chapstick. I like that.
That movie is very much for a specific audience.
Well, exactly. But, I think if that movie had an audience, it was, college kids and probably high school kids. And I was a college kid, and I was like, no.
I don't know about that. I see what you're saying. I could see a lot of college kids not liking that film, only in so much for it has that weird indie sensibility, and people might be kind of turned off by it.
And it was very over the top. Like it wasn't Wes Anderson at all, and
right.
I think that's what the look that they were going for was.
I could see that movie having much more of a crossover appeal with other groups than Jay and Silent Bob.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, I see what the point you're trying to make.
Right.
Because Jay and Silent Bob is a lot more raunchier, where you're not going to let anybody under 17 watch this movie.
Although that's their target audience is people under 17. Yeah, like Napoleon Dynamite, it's very absurdist that's not going to connect with a lot of people. Because sometimes too weird is not a good thing. But even still, I'd be curious to see what your reaction would have been to Jay and Silent Bob at a younger age. I know we can't do it unless Gorehound invents a time machine.
Gorehound, you're not busy this weekend, right?
And I'm not sure if I had a time machine, I would go back and do that, because I know what Jen would have thought of it back then. And I don't want to anger her anymore than I'm already angering her this month.
Plus, space-time continuum and all that. Here's the thing about this movie, right? Like it cost $22 million to make. I looked it up. It only made like $33 million. So, that's okay, but that's not great, especially considering, for 2001, you had so many good actors in it, right? I mean,
wait, so they made a profit?
Right. I mean, they made a profit, but they didn't make like a huge profit.
Well,
hey, a profit's a profit, nonetheless.
Hang on. How much did the movie make?
$33 million.
And how much did it cost to make?
$22 million.
That's debatable, because usually you want to double a film's budget for a break-even point for a movie.
Right, because that almost never includes things like promotional, whatever, and
right. So the film made money, but it underperformed.
Yes.
Okay.
So here's the thing about a movie like this, right? So the thing is, it's so like self-referential and meta, like, right? Mm-hmm. So they're making jokes about how the movie is just one big gay joke, and they're making jokes about how, this is a bad movie, and like we're going to stare at the screen or we're going to stare at the audience, and then you're all going to know that, like, yeah, we know it's a bad movie, but we're still like in it, and we still have your money. But like the problem with that is that, like, there's this guy, right, Kevin Smith, who, like, I didn't like Clerks, but I can understand how, he financed it himself. He made back some money. That was a thing where he financed it himself, and I think it made like $3 billion or something. But like that's really good, right? When you've made it on your own dime. So, and then he gets this platform where he can make movies and like say something. But like rather than doing that, he just kind of makes this movie where he doesn't say anything, but then because it's so self-referential and meta, like you can't even critique it, right? Because if you come in there and you're like, well, like, it's not a good movie. He's like, yeah, bro, I know that. I know it's not a good movie. Like, it wasn't trying to be a good movie. Like, the fact that you care that it was a bad movie makes you the loser, And so it's like one of those things you can never win, right? Because no matter what, he's going to be like, well, I wasn't trying. So, like, I didn't fail because I wasn't trying.
You raise a very excellent point. You really do with that. I think that definitely is one of the issues people can have with this movie, is that it's he can come back and say, "Oh, it wasn't meant to be good," and you're like, "Well, then what?" And that's inherently becomes a different type of flaw for the movie, and sort of gives him a get out of jail free card if he's trying to, if people are trying to critique the actual film. So you raise a very, very, very good point with that.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts, Gorehound?
I mean, I love the movie. I know all these flaws about it, but Kevin Smith is somebody that I connect to on a weekly basis. He makes movies that he wants to watch, movies that he thinks would be funny, and his clique of friends thinks would be funny. He's not out there trying to make an award-winning movie. He's just trying to make a fun movie with expand his universe, get into a whole bunch of hijinks.
Okay, so I have a question, because I don't follow Kevin Smith, but you do, Gorehound. Would you say that he has given his current output or his recent movies, would you say he is like expanding as a filmmaker? Would you say he's just kind of working within this same particular
I think he's on
universe, or is he kind of?
Yeah, because he had a few failures with like Jersey Girl and Cop Out, which just did not do well. He didn't enjoy making them. But then you started coming out with his next few, like Red State, Tusk, and Yoga Hosers. And they were all not his style, but I think he's really developing because now he's doing a whole bunch of stuff. He is doing a whole bunch of TV series because people want him as a director. He's not expanding the View Askewniverse with these TV shows, but he's getting jobs. People are liking the work that he does. He's fun to work with. And he is a very cult icon where he can bring in, Jason Mewes into an episode and you have a connection to it.
Can I go? Because
Okay.
I have a very different answer.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I think at the end of this movie, Jay and Silent Bob, Kevin Smith wanted to move on from doing these lowbrow, whatever type movies, which he tried doing with Jersey Girl, which bombed for reasons that were no fault of his own. He did
Zack and Mary
Make a Porno, which got with trashed reviews. He did Cop Out, which is the first film, I think so far only film, that he didn't also write. But he directed it, and that apparently was a disaster for him. He tried doing the horror film Red State, and that was a disaster.
But was it? I mean,
critically, yes, and most critics ripped it apart, and it didn't do well box office wise, which eventually led him. I might be getting my timeline of events mixed up, but I mean, he went back to doing Clerks 2. That might have been before Red State, though. And then, so he fell back on this. He's doing all the nerd stuff with the podcast and everything. So he's building his media empire around basically being a giant fan. I mean, he has a podcast where all he talks about is Batman. So, I mean, he's appealing.
But he also has a podcast that is entirely about tossed salad and scrambled eggs.
Frasier? Yeah.
His entire podcast on Frasier. He does. I think he honestly does 3 hours of podcast a week.
Well, I mean, and see, that's the thing. He realizes who his audience is.
Right.
And
as soon as he started podcasting, he started gathering a huge amount of people because now everybody is.
He already had those fans. He's building into that specific group, which are then going back and finding his films, and it's sort of like a self-serving, self-sustaining economy, as it were. Smith has not really found success outside of his Jay and Silent Bob type characters without kind of going back to those characters, which there's nothing wrong with that. But when he tries
his strong suit.
Well, yeah, and when he tries to evolve away from that, he it doesn't work for him. He's directing episodes of Supergirl and The Flash, but not to belittle TV directors, but TV directors, it's not the same as being a movie director. And he even says, he just lets people do his thing. Mm-hmm. They hire him because he has a relationship with Warner Brothers. He's always pimping their stuff, but it also for fan recognition. Let's get Kevin Smith to direct our show. That will bring maybe his fans to check out the show and then boost our ratings. It's not because he's a great auteur and they want his creative genius on the show. So I feel that he hasn't been able to grow because anytime he does, it just bombs.
He's anchored to his universe.
He's trying to do these new films like Tusk and Yoga Hosers, which bombed with both critically and financially, and which it's great he's able to make the movie that he wants to make, but he's box office poison at the moment, and he's strayed very far away from the critical darling he originally was, which is unfortunate, but he's just having trouble breaking from that mold, and I don't know. He's good at what he's doing now, but in my personal belief, highly overrated for what people want to give him credit for.
I do think that his universe, he has expanded his universe by podcasting, not just because he's already been preaching to these people, but I feel like there's a much larger audience that's only listening to his podcasts, because his podcasts are very entertaining and fun. I would not be a fanboy if I did not listen to his podcasts, because I'm honestly primarily a podcast fan of Kevin Smith rather than a movie fan of Kevin Smith.
Wait a second, but why are we watching all these movies?
I mean, do you want to review his Frasier podcasts?
I don't know how we review a podcast.
I was hoping we could do it in 2 weeks.
I know we are. I just don't know how we're going to do it. That's going to be a very experimental episode for us.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I don't know. Those are just my thoughts on Kevin Smith's overall legacy. But
okay, no, I think that's really interesting. I think that's really. It's really interesting because he's had such a platform and kind of an ability to tell the stories he wants to tell, but to see it kind of, not always necessarily working out for him, or to see that maybe the stories he wants to tell, whether that means his audience isn't growing with him, growing out of this universe that he created, or if that means, that maybe he's not ready to be a more serious filmmaker. Without seeing those movies, I can't really speak to that, but that's definitely interesting. That makes me sort of curious how that's going for him.
The one thing that annoys me about him right now is that he's totally in nepotism form. Like, everything he does now, he casts his daughter in. When he has no business casting his daughter in. Like, it's just pure unabashed nepotism. Like in the movie Yoga Hosers, his daughter, who has not really had any acting experience previously, is one of the lead.
That was her first role.
Yeah, she's one of the lead characters. The episode of Supergirl that he directed, he cast his daughter in one of the leading guest roles on that episode, and it's like, which is even odder because the woman that was cast as his daughter's mother on the show, they look nothing alike. Like, his daughter's very, very pale and blonde, and the mother, I don't know if she was, but she looked very Latina. And it's like, okay, this, no, you are not mother and daughter. But, and that bothers me from, that he's leaning and going on that. I mean, I know it's his daughter, he wants her to do well, but at the same time, it's like, you're better than this, Kevin Smith.
Is he?
Yeah, that is a weird spot where we don't necessarily want to see Harley Quinn in every single Kevin Smith movie. I mean, yeah, it's fun and interesting to see the director and daughter work together, but at the same time, I don't know. The actress is on the screen. We want to see a good actress.
I have a really hard time understanding a fully grown adult man who names his daughter after a comic book character. That's weird, right?
How much of a fan?
It's unusual, but you know what? It's way better than what Nick Cage called his son.
What was that?
Nick Cage is a big comic book fan, up to and including, apparently he went to like a comic book convention, not as a guest, but as a fan. And he was like walking around on the floor. But
oh my gosh, that would have been it would have been outrage.
No, Nick Cage named his son Kal-El, which is Superman's name, his original name from his home planet.
They're just gone with Superman Cage.
Well, that was almost a real thing back in the 90s.
But that's
I
kind of
wonder
like
if the two of them ever just like hang out, Kevin Smith and Nick Cage, and are just like, we've made weird choices.
but that would be like calling my son Freddy. I mean, yeah, Harley Quinn might be a little odd, but I would push for the name Freddy. And if the Graveyard Queen is down, if the Graveyard Queen is down with Frederick Boatwright, I would win.
Well, but here's the difference.
I'm never going to win that. But
right.
Here's the difference. Freddy is like a name that you wouldn't automatically associate with Freddy Krueger. Had Kevin Smith named his daughter Harley, that wouldn't necessarily mean anything. Like, okay, Harley, whatever. But he named her Harley Quinn, which, that does raise an eye. Okay, we're kind of going all over the board here. Our discussion on Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back has veered into
a little off topic.
Veered into Kevin Smith as a whole. So let's and we're running a little bit long here. So let's tie some things up. Unless anyone has any final thoughts on Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
No, I think Jen has already stabbed it enough times. I think.
If only I could put it out in the pasture and shoot it.
Time to put it out of its misery.
I feel like I kind of come in between you guys in terms of my thoughts.
You do.
I feel like you usually do.
Yeah. Like, Gorehound, you're like...
You guys hold hands now.
Like, Gorehound, you're all about, like, this movie's the greatest film ever. Jen, you're like, burn this film with fire, then salt the earth. And
Salt the earth.
I'm kind of like, well, I used to like it a lot, but then I matured out of it, and now I don't think it's all that good. Being the middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
But, interesting. That's the way things go, I suppose. So, I have interesting news, but I also have trivia. Which one do you guys want first?
Let's do interesting news. I'm pretty sure I know what it is.
Okay. So, as I mentioned before, we actually started recording, that I came across some interesting news to bring up during the podcast, which I thought, Gorehound, you'd be very excited by. Just for posterity's sake, today is February 9th that we're recording this on. But it'll go up in a couple of days on Monday. But I learned, actually, just as I was logging on before we did the podcast, that it's ironic or coincidental, whatever you want to think, that we're talking about Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, because Kevin Smith just announced that he is making a sequel to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back called
Jay and Silent Bob Reboot.
Ugh. What is the point?
Well, he actually wrote a detailed reason why he's doing it, and I kind of understand why. It sums up. He was trying to do a couple. He was trying to make Clerks 3. Looks like that's not going to happen because one of the actors doesn't want to do it. He was trying to make.
One?
He doesn't say, and I haven't done research. So, he was trying to do a follow-up to the movie Mallrats, which why? But
would have been a TV series.
Yeah, but nothing's been going on that. But
I thought that one was really going to take off, but apparently it's not.
Yeah, I don't know why you would want to do a sequel to Mallrats. What more can you say about that? But anyway, that's a discussion for another day. But one thing that he made a comment is that all of his other movies he doesn't actually own, and but what he does own are the rights to Jay and Silent Bob, and the analogy that he uses is that it's fun directing episodes of The Flash and Supergirl and doing podcasts and doing these new movies, but sometimes you just have a desire to play with your old toys. And he kind of wants to go back and revisit these characters after all these years. And the alleged plot of the movie is that Jay and Silent Bob discover that Hollywood's making a reboot of the movie they made in the first one. So
Yeah, so it's basically the same story again.
pretty much, yeah. And it sounds like they're going to try to satirize the comic book world, the comic book movie world, and Hollywood reboots, which I'll admit there is some merit to that, but it's very strange that he's revisiting these characters after all this time.
I mean,
But
here's my question. Do you think the characters will grow at all, or would they just still be standing in front of that?
They're still going to be standing in front of the store, but they're going to be talking about, completely current topics. May even get political, but he's talking about stuff that he likes to talk about, and he doesn't talk about the same things all the time. He talks about current events. So I would imagine it being very current.
And
Okay,
also,
well-
to be fair, there's a very good possibility that this film will not get actually made. There's right now he's trying to write it, so who knows if it will go anywhere.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But I found it.
Gorehound, the weekend it comes out, text me, let me know how it went.
Yeah.
He'll drag you to see it, and he'll be like,
And it's a new release. Watch it.
yeah.
Just tell me that, hey, come over, we're gonna play Monopoly, and then
Chick flick.
That would be so mean. I'd kind of love it.
All right. Well, I think it's that time of the show where we're going to talk about trivia.
It's trivia time.
Trivia time.
So I have some trivia today. It's Kevin Smith related.
Obviously.
Right around the time when Jane Silent Bob came out, Kevin Smith complained about an A-list Hollywood director, and his complaint was that this director ripped him off. In that, Kevin Smith had written a comic book, a Jane Silent Bob comic book, and there was a scene in there that was very similar to a scene in a movie that came out around the same time, and he publicly accused this director of ripping him off. Who was this director? Was it A, Tim Burton, B, Steven Spielberg, or C, James Cameron?
Oh my god. Here's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say it's Tim Burton, because I want to imagine the two of them in a fight, and then they just punch each other.
All right.
And then their jaws hurt.
Gorehound, what's your guess?
Tim Burton, James Cameron, or Steven Spielberg?
Yes.
James Cameron?
The correct answer is Tim Burton. So, Jen, congratulations.
I'm gonna be 100% this entire podcast, aren't I? On trivia. I'm trying.
I think you got at least one a couple weeks back, no?
I think I need to get a study guide, an all-new Culture Cast study guide.
The story, how it alleges to go, is that Tim Burton... I'm sorry, when Tim Burton came out with the movie Planet of the Apes, his version of it, which is probably best left forgotten, at the tail end of the movie, when Mark Wahlberg returned to Earth, he discovered that Earth... Spoilers. He discovered that Earth was overrun with apes, including... at the very end of the film, he came across the Lincoln Memorial, and it was replaced Abe Lincoln's face with a monkey dressed as Abe Lincoln. Kevin Smith claimed that this was ripping him off because Kevin Smith had written a similar bit in a comic book a few years back. So Tim Burton responded with, "No, that's not true. It was based off of something that was in the original Planet of the Apes novel, because it was a novel before it became a movie." And I would never read, and anyone who knows me knows I would never read anything by Kevin Smith, and I would never, ever read a comic book. Kevin Smith's response was, "Well, that explains Batman."
That's a pretty good response.
Kevin Smith, I think, later on tried to play it off as if it was like, "Oh, no, I was just joking around with my original comment." I don't think he was. I think he was kind of like, "Oh, wait, no, I'm wrong." And he tried to play it off as, "No, I was just joking," but I don't know. I
can see that.
I am dubious of that claim.
I'm close it up.
I think that's going to be... I think that's going to be it. So, next week we're talking about Kevin Smith's podcasts?
Yeah, let me...
Which ones do you want us to listen to?
Just a minute. I gave you a lineup.
Yeah, but then I gotta go onto Facebook and look at it, and
Wait, did you Facebook us this?
Oh yeah, maybe that was.
It was a while ago.
Just a Jay and Silent Bob podcast and a Hollywood Babylon podcast. So they do run like an hour and a half. So I would say check it out. But I mean, I watch every single one. So
okay. So what do you want? Are you going to want us to listen to specific episodes, or just any episodes we think are interesting?
Just listen to the latest episode.
Okay. And what are they called? Let me just put them on my phone before I forget. Podcasting app. Here we go. Okay. So name a podcast.
Hollywood Babylon.
So you're talking about the February 3rd, 2017 episode of Babylon.
Yes, that would be a good one.
Okay. That is the most recent. And then is there another podcast?
Yeah, Jay and Silent Bob Get Old.
All right. I think that's going to do it then for us. So thanks for listening, everyone. Once again, I'm Nick.
I'm the Gorehound.
And I'm Jen.
See you next week with our riveting discussion on Kevin Smith's podcasts. Have a good one.
Okay.
You've been listening to the all-new Culture Cast, one of Chicagoland's finest podcasts.
You're making me fall asleep to death.
Well, I guess there's not much we can do about that. In the meantime, check out our blog at znculturecast.wordpress.com. Send us an email at nick.culturecast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your feedback, comments, and requests. Follow us on social media. Theme music by bensound.com. This has been a Saltwater production, copyright 2017. Thanks for listening.
I mean, I've seen a few like oil rig horror movies, but not a whole lot.
How many oil rig horror movies can there possibly be?